In order to be a great coach, do I have to have owned a business to help other business owners grow? That's the conversation today. Let's jump in. BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Well, welcome. Glad that you are here on the podcast. Hope you're getting a lot of value. If you have not checked out some of our other episodes on how to build a successful and profitable business coaching practice, I want to encourage you to do so. And if you get a chance, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. It helps grow this community. There are other people out there like you who are considering starting a business coaching practice, and they are looking for content, and you can help them when you like, when you comment, you subscribe. It helps others see this content as well. So here we go. Controversial conversation, right? I get the question quite often. Do I have to own a business, or do I have to have business ownership experience to be a business coach? Okay? So I'm going to give you my context. There's likely not a right and wrong. Some would argue that there is. I don't think that there is. But here's the bottom line. No, you do not have had to have owned or currently own a business to be a great business coach and strategist. Now, plenty of people will disagree with me, which is totally fine. I'll give you my perspective and why. And my encouragement to you, if you're in a position where, man, you love coaching people, you love helping people, you love marketing, you love strategy, you love vision casting and whatnot, but you've never owned a business and you would like to coach others, but you've got that one thing standing in your way, like, yeah, but I've never owned a business, and that's why you've not moved forward. You are consuming a myth. And I'm going to share why I believe that to be true. Now, also, clearly, if you own or have owned a business, yes, it's going to help. I mean, that's to be an obvious statement. So please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, whether it's the bathwater out with the baby, whatever that statement is, to get my words mixed up. But the point is, obviously, it's going to give you aid, but it doesn't mean anything about you being great at it. So that's just the real truth. Here's why. 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. 90%. So that already tells us that just because you own a business doesn't mean that you're successful at it. And it happens all the time to amazing men and women for a lot of different variables. Second, the average profit margin in America is around 8 to 10%. That's basically taking home the least amount of all the effort and the work. Why? Because business growth is different than business ownership, period. Just because you own the business doesn't mean you know how to grow it, which is the reason why 90% fail, and there's just barely a 10% average net margin, at least in the U.S. That's actually close to even being a global number. But we look at all the big companies, NVIDIA, Boeing, Walmart, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, Richard Branson, Virgin, the cruises and the airlines and the records and so on. But those are the outliers. The Fortune 100s and the Fortune 500s are not the average. The majority of the employment in the United States, anyways, is employed by the small business sector. 52%, by the way. Think about that. That's the pizzeria. That's the restaurant. That's the dry cleaners. That's the dog groomers. That's the HVAC company. That's the insurance broker. That's the real estate agent and the broker that has employees and so on. That's who the majority. So that's where that 90% comes from. When a lot of people have this desire to jump out there, I don't want to be a part of the 9-to-5 world. I'm tired of the corporate, hamster wheel and so on. They start a business. Just randomly, some will buy a franchise. That doesn't mean that they're going to be successful. But they don't have any experience in actually growing the business. So one, when we look at it from that lens, we can go, oh, okay, well, just because I own one doesn't mean a ton yet. All right. Secondly, growth comes from strategy. Okay. Again, you look at sports. You look at these two teams on a football field. They've got two different sets of groups of people on both sidelines with headphones on. They've developed prior to the game. They have developed strategies to win the game. All right. They're the ones on the sidelines calling in those plays based upon their philosophies, based upon their experience, based upon a number of different factors, the types of players they have on the field with different skill sets and so on. It's about strategy. So when you look at the growth of the business, so many businesses are focused on almost exclusively operational, which we clearly have to have operations. We have to run the business, payroll, lead people, manage them, be visionaries, innovators, and so on. But that has nothing to do with the strategic elements about growth. That's where a strategist comes into play to help the business focus. That's why we call our system the focus method inside Business Coach Mastery, to help them focus on, here we go, ready? One strategy at a time and one step at a time. So when you learn business growth, which is what we teach in our community, when you learn business growth and you have the steps, your job now is to become a great strategist to help stretch that individual business owner and help them to recognize, here are the steps to implement this strategy. Here's an example. Let's say that we were going to help the business to trim the fat, cut the cost. What most businesses will do, if they're not looking at it strategically, is they just look at it in a way to go, well, we just need to cut off some spending that we just don't really need. Well, that's obviously a part of it. But here's what a strategy would go. We'd go, step one, we're going to look at your supplier costs and your vendors' costs, okay? We're going to take a peek at your contracts. We're going to see what you need, what you don't need, whatever. And our goal is going to attempt to renegotiate contracts and reduce some of those fees. Now, that's a process. So when we're looking at, like in this example, cutting costs, we're going to have, 5 to 8 different steps to them, and it'll take probably 4 to 6 weeks to complete. So we're not just getting rid of subscriptions that we don't need anymore or spending a little bit less over here, whatever. No, we're going to strategically align ourselves based upon some predefined steps that are already created. So as a strategist, my job is to learn the strategy itself, the steps themselves, and come over here and teach the owner and or their team what to do next. And that's why we say in our community that we're going to coach them to get results with simplicity. That simplicity is helping them to myopically look at one strategy at a time and one step at a time. All right. Next thing is, oftentimes diverse experience trumps singular ownership. So the guy who's owned the business for 10, 15, 20 years, that's all he's ever done and ever knows, versus those that have been in sales and marketing, those that have worked at ad agencies, those that have been SVPs in certain types of companies or whatever, or they've had multiple jobs in multiple places. Oftentimes we see those that have a mix of a background, they just got more exposure that helps them see a lot of things. We have a number of coaches on our team inside Business Coach Mastery who one of them, had more than a decade of experience in selling digital ads, digital services, that he has spent countless of hours over those, 10, 13 years with hundreds of business owners. He's had exposure to tons of different industries and sectors, their challenges, their growth potentials, what works, what don't, hiring issues or whatever. Just the exposure alone and having close partnerships with a lot of them, it gives them a huge advantage of being able to help somebody else. Same thing with a CPA, for instance. And while, yes, they may own their own business, if you will, but a lot of them are, solopreneurs. But their client load, they have tons of business owners that are clients. And they've spent time around them. They've gotten exposure. They've even kind of just, as a part of this, being an outside voice, they've kind of helped them walk through some of the challenges by having a challenging team member or, dealing with a sticky situation and they're just looking for an extra voice. So they've got this exposure element to them that significantly helps them in working with other businesses anywhere. Okay. So it's very important to understand that if you have a diverse background in a lot of different areas, that's actually a very good thing. And again, let me state the point here. If you've owned that business for 20 years, well, clearly you've done something right. You made it past year 5. You're in the 10% thing, right? But here's what's also interesting. Many successful business owners, this is hard. This is going to be hard for someone to swallow, but many successful business owners can't always tell you why they're successful. It's just working. They may just have like the Midas touch, but if they don't understand, they can't ever even teach it. And I've heard it 1,000 times. Yeah, man, we've been in business for about 25 years where, this, that, and other growth. I'm like, dude, that's great. Like, what's been your core reason for growth? Truthfully, man, it's just, God's been good to us, and it's just kind of work, a great team. Like, they can never actually tell you the strategies that work. Now, the challenge of that, if you're listening and you own that business, could be some thin ice there. We've seen what happened in 2008 and with COVID. People just like that don't know how to turn the ship around when it gets challenging. So just a little side note there, that we want to understand what brings causality. I can promise you, go back to the analogy of the big companies, the Amazons and the Walmarts, whatever, they know where growth comes from because they've analyzed strategy specifically, myopically, okay? And the last thing for today, at least, is that the one of the arts of coaching. Now, again, as a business strategist, our job is we're not giving advice. We're not just, oh, this is what you should do. No, we're going to walk through a strategic path in our system, in our done-for-you system. We have all that already laid out for a coach. You don't have to create any content whatsoever, okay? And it's the strategies that work. We're not making up new strategies. We're going to help them cut costs, increase their prices, be more unique than their competitor, and so on. But inside doing that, okay, a great strategist and a great coach does two really important things that have nothing to do with business ownership. And that is objectively give fresh perspectives at the risk of offending someone. Meaning, we're not just going to tell them what they want to hear. Now, we want to have grace. We want to, be seasoned with salt, in the conversation. We want to be able to handle it delicately. But there are times that the great strategist and the great coaches will say, listen, do what you need to do. You own the business. It's yours to make the decision or whatever. But I'm going to give you my perspective. If you don't mind, I want to lean into you a little bit. Might step on you a little bit, not intentionally, but I would be, I would walk away and would not feel good if I wasn't transparent and candid with what's going on. Okay, that is that as a faith-based entrepreneur and as a Christian business coach, we are obligated to tell our business owners and clients the truth, even when it stings a little bit. It could be the way that their attitude. You may be watching the interactions between them and their team, and you can tell there's some toxicity, or there's some challenges, or there's some leadership issues that the business owner needs to deal with, meaning them, or issues that they're ignoring because they don't like confrontation. And I'm not saying that we've got to be confrontational. I'm saying a great strategist and a coach and a confidant gives incredibly important outside perspectives and that are key, because oftentimes when the business owner is so close to the business, they've got blinders on. And we all do it. It is a part of confirmation bias. So there you go. Is making yourself a great coach, is owning a business, do you have that? No. Does it help? Of course. But if you're sitting there and you've never owned a business, you've helped businesses, maybe you've been the second in command, if you will, at a number of places. Maybe you've been a sales manager. Maybe you've been an SVP, whatever. In some capacity, you've got professional experiences, and you love coaching people. You love helping people. You love marketing. You love business growth and so on. But your biggest apprehension of moving forward is that you just never own the business. You don't have to, but you can learn the strategies to help others succeed and grow. Hope that makes sense to you. Hope that adds value to you. I hope that gives you something to consider, to think about, and to pray about, depending upon where you are in your journey as a coach. And lastly, maybe you're coaching right now, but that's something that always kind of makes you feel like, I've never really owned a business, and I feel like that's one of the things I'm kind of in an imposter syndrome. That's not the case. I've got some great friends who are a part of consultative teams who help faith-based media companies do fundraising. They've never owned a radio station. They've never managed a television station. They've never managed or owned online, properties. But they're coaching them and teaching them the keys for fundraising to operate their facilities, their buildings, their brands. Okay, So this is what you walk away with today. It's about business growth strategies. We want to engage with a business owner to strategically help them grow the business. That's what our job is. That's what our goal is. It has nothing to do, truthfully, with ownership. It's about strategy development. That part you can teach, you can train, and you can preach. Okay? If you're curious about how to start a profitable business coaching practice and you'd love to know more about our Done For You system, simply go to businesscoachmastery.com. That's businesscoachmastery.com. There's some information there that you can get all about our Done For You system. You can even schedule a quick chat overview. We'll share with you more about it. That way you can determine if it's worth learning more for you or not. Okay? Until next time, take care.